Time to have a look back at some of my favourite colour palettes from Huely 2020. 2020 was the first time I was fully prepared for the Huely challenge ahead of time. I had prepped 11 colour palettes and even outlined the topics I should work with throughout the month. When I picked this warm colour palette, I already had a Savannah theme in mind. Oftentimes, I prefer having a colour palette that mixes both warm and cool colours, as that in itself creates a really good contrast in the image. However, I was trying something slightly different here, meaning it was entirely on purpose to make every colour warm toned, as that sets the mood for the warm African Savannah theme. One of the classic cold-warm contrasts is blue and red. Red is of course a colour that always tends to stand out, however in a winter scene like this, the red stands out so much more. While the colour palette also has a brown, this colour was only used for the little mouse that's hiding in the burrow close to the bottom. The mouse is meant to stand out a bit against the cool environment as well, however it's not meant to be as visible as the bright red fox, who is the star of this image. This colour palette is a bit similar to the previous one, but it contains more warm tones. In hindsight, I think some of the colours might have some contrast issues, though for this specific image, it's not as easily seen as the two problematic colours aren't placed side by side. These are things that can be avoided by double checking the contrast beforehand, and that is truly something I try to do when I pick my colour palettes, but at times things fall through the cracks. Greens and yellows work really well together, however it's a colour combination I tend to struggle with. This is again where a theme came in handy. While I hadn't necessarily made a list of exactly what flowers I'd paint, I was able to sit down and find flowers that would work with the colour palette. Part of the challenge was also to make sure that I didn't end up painting an orchid on a plain background, but instead make sure that I put it into a context. And honestly, I'm still really happy with how this image turned out. Another warm-toned colour palette, and yet again the theme was animals. With a colour palette like this, I felt a bit limited in what kind of animals I could paint, but yet again the theme gave me enough framework to figure things out. Of course, a red panda had to be featured in this colour scheme, and no, I didn't paint another fox, as that just didn't feel right as I had already painted one earlier in the challenge. I'd love to know if you have any kind of go-to colour palettes and what they are. Let me know in the comment section. Thank you for joining me in this look back at previous work. More process videos are up on my YouTube channel, and you can find more of my work on my website and on social media.